Hello. In this video, we're going to be modeling this coffee cup, and I'll be showing you how to do that, starting with primitives. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up a new scene. I don't have to worry about saving this. And now we have a new scene. I should also put on my grid. Here's grid. And now we're going to get started. We've already identified that the coffee cup can be made with two cylinders. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a cylinder primitive. From here, we can go into the attribute editor and change its properties. So we go to pCylinder1, and now polycylinder1. And what we want to do is we want to change the height and radius. So height and radius are both in actual centimeters. So this is 1 centimeter high or wide, and this is 2 centimeters tall. So for our coffee cup, we want to have a realistic radius of, let's say, 4 centimeters and a realistic height of, let's say, 10. So the next thing we want to do is set the subdivisions. Subdivisions are how many sections the polygon is divided into, with each section creating its own edges and faces. We want this to be a number divisible by 4 because we're going to be adding quads to this model later on. So we're going to change the subdivisions to 12. Don't worry that it looks a little angular. It's okay. We'll be smoothing that out later. The next thing that we want to do is we want to change the height subdivisions. We're going to set this to 5. So now the height of our cylinder is split into 5 sections. Final thing we want to do is change the subdivision caps to 0. This is going to smooth out the top and bottom of our cylinder, which we want to do because we're actually going to be adding the quads to the bottom of the cylinder, and we're going to be removing the top. Next thing we want to do is we go to the pCylinder1 tab. We want to actually set the translate in the Y value to 5. So that way, as you can see, it is placed on the grid. When the grid in Maya is showing, it is actually showing where the ground would be in your scene. So this is placing this straight on the grid, on the ground. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to delete the top face of the cylinder. So go into face mode, click on the top face of the cylinder, and delete it. Then we will go down to the underside of the cylinder, and we're going to make this a little easier to see. What we're going to do is if you click this button here in your view panel, it will hide the grid so that you don't have to worry about looking through the grid. So the next thing we want to do is we will click on the bottom face of the cylinder, and then we can press Control E to pull up the extrude tool. You can also click right here. Then with the extrude widget, we are going to click on any of the axis handles, and that will pull up the center universal axis, which will allow us to scale the entire thing. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to drag it in, and then we're going to press G, which will pull up another extrude from this point, which we can collect the handle, and then we can drag it in once again. Next, press Q to get rid of our tool, and then we'll click on the multi-cut tool. We need to separate this face into quads. Quads are faces with 4 edges, quadrilateral, squares, things like that. So we need to separate this into quads. And the easiest way to do that is to bisect the face into perpendicular lines. So we're going to start by clicking on one edge or on one vertex and then finding the vertex the opposite. And now we have a cut. If you right click, cut is accepted. So then we can go and click on this edge or this vertex, and the perpendicular one directly across that's going to make a perpendicular line is here. So we click on that, boom. And then we can do it again here, boom, and here. Okay, so now you can see that each of these sections is set up as a quad. Okay, so now that we have our cup, our bottom of our cup separated into quads, let's smooth our cup. The easiest way to do that is to make sure that you're in object mode and then select the smoothing tool right here. And that will make our cup nice and smooth. Next thing we want to do is we want to add thickness to our cup. So in order to do that, we can use the extrude tool and go to the thickness option here in the options panel. We can change that to say 0.3 centimeters. Now we have a nice actual thickness to our cup. Let's take a look at the rim of the cup. If we wanted to smooth this again, which we can do a preview of by pressing 3, you'll see that the rim of the cup is a little sharp, and we don't want that. So if we press 1 to go back to the normal mode, what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called an edge loop to cut an edge around the rim of the cup. So we'll use our multi-cut tool, and then if you hold Control, you'll see this ring of edges created around the vertex, or the ring of edges created around the inside of the cup. So if we were to click here, now we have an entire ring of edges created in our cup. It is only on the inside because there is thickness, and these are two separate faces of the cup. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to do it again, right about here. And now, if we were to press 3 to smooth our cup, you can see that it is smooth and it's gotten a bit flatter around the rim, which is what we're looking for. Press 1 to get out of that. Now we're going to go to the bottom of the cup. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a recessed bottom for a cup, so that, like most coffee cups, there's a bit of an indent in the bottom of it. So in order to do that, we're going to press Q to get rid of our multi-cut tool. And then we are going to, if you hold Tab, you can paint a selection of faces. And now they're all highlighted. And the goal here is to get the entire inside of this cup that we want to extrude into the recess. One of the easier ways to do that is if you hold Shift and then press period, it will increase the size of your selection. And then you can hold Tab again and paint over these missing faces. So now that we have a nice selection for our recess, what we're going to do is we are going to extrude again. So you can hold right click. Oh, sorry. If you hold Shift and right click, you can also pull up all of your tools. So now we have an extrude tool. So now that we have our extrude tool up, we can go back into our options panel, and instead of thickness, this time we're going to change the local translate Z. If we change that to 0.1, what you'll see is it's pushed it out by 0.1 centimeters. If we change it to negative 0.1, now it's pushed it in. And now we have the recess that we were looking for. Now, one of the things that I will say about this is we want to make it nice and flat at the base. And if you were to smooth this again, so there's our recessed base. So now that we have our cup, we want to make a handle for it. Like I said before, you can create a handle using your primitive cylinder, which you could drag around here, go into your attribute editor, and change the width and height of your cylinder. And then you could also go down here and change your manipulation, I want to put it to 7.3 and 4.5. That's about where we want that there. Um, and then from here, if we go into our polycylinder 2 tab and change our subdivisions in along our height to say like 10, now we can individually manipulate these faces uh, to get the shape that we want, and then we can smooth it out at the end. Now, as you can see, this is a little uh, tedious and also very not precise. So you'll end up doing a lot more work, but you can make this shape look like this if you want to. The other option, and this trick that I'll show you, it's a lot gives you a lot more manipulation uh, of your curve when you do it this way. We're actually going to delete this. Oops, delete that too. Delete the whole thing. And instead, uh, we're going to take our cup and we're going to cut holes in the cup that are then going to become a bridge to form your handle. So the first thing you do is if you hold Shift. First thing you do is if you go into face mode and then hold Shift and click um, the squares here like this. So you have 4 squares at the top, 4 squares at the bottom, and they're along the same center vertex. And then we're going to, if you hold Shift, right click, you can pull your tool menu here and choose circularize components. All right, now we have 2 rounder sets of quads, but they're a little off center. So what we're going to do is we're going to twist them using the twist option here. I found that about 2.2 on the twist gives you, with this size cup, gives you pretty straight selection. Next, if you rotate the camera, you'll notice that the faces kind of look a little bumpy. You see that? So what we want to do is we want to smooth that out and make it follow the same curve as the rest of the cup. In order to do that, if you go to alignment and instead of automatic, you choose surface average. Now it follows the curve of the cup while still having those faces rounded so that we can manipulate them. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to delete these faces. So now you should have a hole inside of the outside edge of your cup or the outside face of your cup and nothing going all the way through. If you do have faces that were deleted in the inside of your cup, it's probably because you accidentally selected them when you were selecting the faces on the outside. So you want to make sure that you only selected the faces you want to remove. Next, if you double click this, if you go into edge mode first, and then double click this edge, we'll select all of the edges around the ring. We want to extrude that, so press Control E to extrude, and then click on handle to get your universal handle. And then if you extrude it in to about there, and then do the same thing over here, Control E, click a handle, drag it in. Now from here, we can double click on the inside edges and press R to scale them from the center a little bit easier. So we can get the thickness for our cup, for our handle for our cup. So let's say about there. Okay, so now we want to connect our edges here together to create our handle. So the way we'll do that is if you double click to get the ring of edges here, and then hold Shift, and then double click this ring of edges, and then you can go into Edit Mesh, Bridge. And now we have a handle. So now that we have this handle, we can manipulate it and change its shape by affecting the curve. So over here in your outliner, you'll see P cylinder 1, and next to that you'll see a little plus sign. If you hit that, you'll see that there is a curve that is a child of P cylinder 1. You click on that curve, and then if you hit 4, you'll see the highlighted green here. This is your curve. Anything that you do to this will affect the shape of the handle. So if we right click and choose Control Vertex, you see these little pink dots. These are affecting the points, the vertex points of your curve. So if you click on one and pull up your translation tool, you can maneuver your points. Did it again. Give me my curve. Pull up Control Vertex. Sometimes it's kind of hard to. You can manipulate this into any shape that you want. And then when you're done, if you hit 5, now you'll see it's changed the shape of your handle. Once you're happy with that, then we'll need to add a taper to the handle to give it a bit of a final touch. So if we go into our poly bridge edge 1 and go down to taper curve, if you change this value, so I'll change it to, let's say, 5. It'll increase or decrease the taper of the curve. If I change this to -2 or -1 or 0.5, you can see how it affects it. So what I think what we want to do here is probably from 1, you probably want to change it to like 0.8-ish. Yeah, that looks good. And you can manipulate that however you want until you are happy with your result. Final thing we want to do is we want to smooth the whole thing. So if we'll press Q to get rid of our tools and then select our smoothing tool, boom. There you go. And now if we click off of that, so we are no longer looking at the vertices, you can see that we now have a coffee mug. The last thing you'll want to do before exporting this and putting it into your game is to remove the history. There's a bunch of extra data that you don't actually need in your exported files that will bog down your game and can make the objects a lot larger than they need to be. So to do that, you go into Edit, and then delete all by type, and then hit History. And now everything that you've done to the mug is finalized, and you no longer have that history in your project anymore. And then you'll want to save it, so you can save your scene and then save it as whatever you would like. I've already made one mug, so we'll make this coffee mug 2. And when you submit projects to me, that's what you'll do is you'll send them as a .mb Maya binary or a .ma file, and that'll allow me to open them up in Maya and take a look at them. And that's it. Next lesson, we will be making a rocket ship.